Hello and welcome to the 10.2 Preservation Evoker Guide. My name's Hydros, and today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about Preservation Evoker. Alright, so before we jump into everything, I'd like to state that this video will be for everyone, beginners to advanced users, and as well as I'd like this video to last after 10.2. I want this to be mainly an introduction to preservation as a whole, and not so much the patch, but also the patch. So let's get into it and talk about the basis of Evoker, what races can play Evoker, and are there limitations. Currently, there is only one race that can be an Evoker, and they are called the Dracthyr. You are also only limited to one Evoker per server, per realm. As you see, when I go to create new character, the Dracthyr is grayed out for me, and it says you can't have more than one Dracthyr on this realm. The Dracthyr also comes with a few racial traits. You have the ability to soar and glide to higher places. You can knock enemies up and knock them away. You have increased mastery, and you're also able to find additional rare reagents when gathering. And to review how these racials work, we'll start off with Thor, and basically it is a copy of dragon riding, but as an Evoker. You have two abilities. One will send you forward with a burst of speed, the other one will send you up, skyward ascent. I do remember that they did announce in the next expansion, The War Within, that they're going to further enhance Soar for Evokers and make it as similar as dragon riding, which is great. A great way to get around. The other two abilities you have for CC, crowd control, and interrupting spellcast are going to be Tail Swipe and Wing Buffet. And as an example of that, we'll go over here to these River Beasts because I do believe they cast a Stomp ability. I'll show you how this works. So the River Beast will come after me. When he starts to cast Stomp, I will knock him up in the air to interrupt his cast. This is really good for Mythic Plus, good for some fights on Raid too. And when he casts another Stomp, I will use my Wing Buffet and knock him back. And as you can see, a great class overall. Mix this with Hover, and you have a very versatile and mobile class, a force to be reckoned with. Rawr. The other two racials worth mentioning are going to be Awakened, which will increase your mastery by 1.8%. And Discerning Eye increases your perception by 2%. Perception increases your ability to spot rare reagents while gathering. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go into the talents, and I'm going to break these down one by one. So let's start by resetting all the talents and going on the left tree down, and then we'll go on the right tree. Okay, so I will probably go through this pretty quickly. If you need to slow down the video or pause it, by all means do that. But I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible since there's a lot of information to go over. So starting with the left tree, we're going to take Obsidian Scales. This is basically a defensive buff on yourself that you can activate. You'll have 2 charges, and we'll need to go down this tree as well as this tree. So starting with the Obsidian Scales, we'll also go into Permeating Chill, and that's basically your damage blue spells reduce the target's movement speed by 50% for 3 seconds. Is this so crazy that you need it in Mythic Plus? No. Or dungeons or any environment? Not necessarily, but we're going to take it because we do need this talent here. The Obsidian Scales has an additional charge. This will be our max 2 charge here. And that also allows us to go into Enkindle, which will activate with our tier set. And that's something we want this season once you do get your tier set, specifically the 2 set. So Living Flame, which is going to be one of our major damaging abilities, as well as our healing abilities, and our tier set activated ability is very important. And this is going to be our feeler when we have nothing else to press. Okay, so let's review the talents we've utilized so far and picked. That's going to be our Obsidian Scales with the extra charge, as well as our Living Flame damage and healing increase. So basically, Obsidian Scales is going to be a defensive buff. You just press it one time and you will have damage taken reduced by 30% for 12 seconds. If you are getting targeted by a boss or you're getting targeted by some type of mob, it's going to hit hard, you can use this preemptively to negate some of that damage. Living Flame is going to be a feeler. Whenever you have no spells to cast, you will Living Flame, hard cast it, Living Flame, You can also heal yourself with it. I will heal myself 92,000, and you can heal other players too as well. We'll heal this big warrior here. This will also interact with our tier set, which we'll go over that later. So Living Flame is your friend. Don't be afraid to cast it. Don't be afraid to heal with it. If you have nothing and no echoes are proccing, Living Flame is your friend to heal allies with. Okay, and moving on, the next part, I'm going to take Landslide, which is basically a root. You will use this on Spiteful Weeks, as well as some mobs that might have some type of fixated ability. You can root them so they will not reach the target. And this also allows us to go into Natural Convergence. This will increase our Disintegrate channel in order for us to output more damage. A lot of our tier set proccing that we'll get this season will proc our Essence Burst, which will give us more Disintegrates as well as more free echoes. So you will want to utilize this for damage if you're running a Disintegrate build, which most of the builds you choose for Mythic Plus will have this build included into them. So you might be saying, well, I don't want to root, but you mainly, if you don't even use Landslide, just get it to get this right here, because this will channel faster, which also equals more damage from Disintegrate. You'll then move into your Interrupt, which is called Quell, basic spell. You just interrupt spell casting and you will prevent any spell from that school of magic from being cast for 4 seconds. After that, you're going to go into Instinctive Arcana. Your magic damage done is increased by 2%, and one more will increase that to 4%. You definitely want to consider taking this one, as it will increase Fire Breath, Living Flame, Disintegrate, and your overall damage modifiers. We'll say it's just an overall great talent to have for a damage build, and we do dump that damage out. So the next talents on the list are going to be Regenerative Magic or Ancient Flame. You can take either or. I do think people go into Regenerative Magic in order to get to Blast Furnace, but if not, you will eventually open up to Tip the Scales and you can go down the magic damage taken reduced into Blast Furnace. You could also take Ancient Flame, as whenever you cast your Emerald Blossom or Verdant Embrace, which is going to be the ability, I will show you this, it will be the ability that jumps to another target and heals them as well as you, and you will have other modifiers that will assist in the Verdant Embrace to replicate a certain percent of your healing done. Most of the time, Ancient Flame's good if you're just running a niche build and you want more Living Flame cast uptime, but for now, we're just going to go into Blast Furnace from Regenerative Magic. From there, we're going to go into Tip the Scales. Tip the Scales is basically a modifier that will allow you to instant cast any of your Empower spells. So you have 3 Empower spells. You have Spirit Bloom, Fire Breath, and Dream Breath. Spirit Bloom is going to divert spiritual energy, healing an ally for 86,000, which is going to be based on your intellect and other secondary stats. That won't be as high as mine, or it might be higher depending on your item level and intellect. It will heal an ally for 86,900, splits to injured allies within 30 yards when empowered. So for each cast that you have, when you hit 1, 2, 3, or 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, you will either heal 1 ally or you'll heal 4 allies. And that's going to be split depending on how long you hold the cast for, or if you'd like to heal 1 person, you're going to tick 1 time. As you can see, I healed him for 255k. That was 1 tick of Spirit Bloom. If I would have held Spirit Bloom down to heal my entire party, every person in this party up to 4 allies would have been healed for that same amount. 255k. And obviously that's going to be enhanced by my own modifiers and secondary stats. So that 86,000 is the base number. That 255k could have been a proc. I'm going to move up and try to heal him. I will hold this down to heal 4 allies. And if I had 4 allies in my party, I would have healed them all for the same amount. So holding this down does not increase the heal. Holding this for 1, we'll say empowered tick, will not decrease the heal. It will increase the amount of people you're healing. So don't think if you hold this down trying to heal someone that you're going to heal a greater amount. If you're wanting to single target heal someone, all you have to do is pull a 1 tick. This is great for single target tank healing, I urge you to practice with it and utilize it. Sphere of Bloom is a good friend, especially if you run some talents that reduce the cooldown reduction. Don't be afraid to use it. The second Empower ability is going to be Dream Breath. Works in a similar fashion. However, you will heal those in a cone in front of you. This is the Evoker healing. This is why people don't play this spec right here, is this cone healing is very awkward to play with and could be difficult. But as you can tell, I have 2 people here. I'm going to release Spirit Bloom, and the longer I hold it down, the more they're going to be healed for. The shorter time that I hold Dream Breath for, they're going to be healed for less, but the heal over time that is left from Dream Breath is going to heal more. Most of the time, I like one ticking this, so that hot can heal 1 time. So this right here, this Dream Breath hot, is healing for more because I held it down for a shorter time. As you can see, if you hold it down for 1 tick, 1 empower tick, it's going to heal for 13,000, and the hot is going to heal for 62,000. If you go all the way up to the 4th tick of this empower spell, you're going to heal for a bigger amount instantly, but the hot that it leaves is going to heal for less. The next one is going to be your damage ability, and this is called Fire Breath. Basically, Fire Breath works in a similar fashion as Dream Breath, but instead of healing or doing damage less the higher it goes, this is going to do more damage, more burst damage the higher you let this go off. But the dot that it leaves behind, which will be this right here, Fire Breath, is going to be smaller. So most of the time, if I'm not expecting any burst healing, I will use my Tip the Scales, which I'm going to use it now. And as you can see, my empower spells light up. I have 3 of them. Don't worry about these 2. I just have a proc from one of my talents that we'll go into later. But these empowered spells, Spirit Bloom, Fire Breath, Dream Breath, are now all instant the moment I press Tip the Scales. So most of the time I will use Tip the Scales on Fire Breath to do a lot of damage to a big pack that we're pulling, big mob pack, we'll say, in Mythic Plus. And as you can see, I popped up to, I think, 4.4 million as a healer, right? Burst, which is crazy, but these are also training dummies. A good practice and good thing to remember with Tip the Scales is before the Mythic Plus key starts, before that timer hits 0 and you go into your loading screen, you can hit Tip the Scales and you'll have the Tip the Scales buff going into this Mythic Plus key. I'll show an example right now from one of my past streams. And you'll also have another cooldown. You'll have another Tip the Scales ability to use once you use the one that you used before the key started. Is that a bug or is that some type of exploit? I don't think it's an exploit, but it's been in the game for a long time and it's some secret tech that a lot of evokers don't know. Okay, so moving on, we're going to continue to go down the tree, and obviously you want to stay alive because the way your mastery works, basically, the higher health you are, the more healing you're going to do to people that have lower health than you. So at the end of the day, you want to keep yourself as high HP as possible, which will relate to the amount of survivability you have compared to other people. And that will also relate to the talents you choose. So you're going to want to choose Draconic Legacy. Some people don't choose this, but I feel like this benefits your mastery, and also Inherent Resistance, which is going to be magic damage taken reduced. So the more survivability you have, the more healing output per mastery you will heal for, right? So these 2 are going to be big survivability talents. You'll want to choose those. And from here, I will go into the far right of the left tree to pick up Cauterizing Flame. This will, every 1 minute, this will remove bleeds, poison, curses, and disease, and also heal the target as well. This can be comboed into an ability we have, which we'll go over soon, called Stasis. It will reset it as long as you have removed a bleed, poison, curse, disease. A great 1 minute talent. This will save you in a lot of dungeons coming up this season, as there are a lot of dispellable debuffs that you will need to remove. From there, we're going to go into Attune to the Dream. This speaks for itself. Your healing done and healing received. You have 2 points of these will be increased by 2%, and 1 more will be 4%. I don't have to explain too much about this one. You will want it at the end of the day, so make sure you pick it up. And sometimes you will have to throw out some blossoms if you feel like it. I don't really do any blossoms whatsoever in Mythic Plus. I will always use Echo, but in some cases you might, if you're trying to run some talents such as Ouroboros, which we'll get into the right tree soon, you will run some blossom essence burst builds, we'll say, if that's what you want to play. I don't play that. I don't like blossoms unless I'm at raid. I will use the blossoms in raid and stacking specific fights, but most of the time I will use echoes over blossoms. So we're still going to use this because we need to get down to these points down here. So in order to get down to this one, we're going to take Bountiful Bloom. So the next one, basically it says Emerald Blossom instantly heals you for 38,000, which will be increased per secondary stats and intellect when cast. So we'll take this in order to get to the other, which the biggest one here is going to be Lush Growth. Green spells restore 5% more health. That's going to be an increase to our healing. We'll take that all day of the week. The next ability, which you would like to have, is going to be another defensive buff, and this is called Renewing Blaze. It says the flames of life surround you for 8 seconds. While this effective is active, 100% of the damage you take is healed back over 8 seconds. This is a great feeler when you don't want to press obsidian scales, when you know you're not going to get hit that hard, but you want to heal back up without wasting global cooldowns or a cooldown in general. You hit Renewing Blaze, you're fine. You heal back up almost to full and you have nothing to worry about. A great ability to have. I always recommend it, and you can play around with it, and you can also stack it with obsidian scales. They both are not on the GCD, so you can use them in conjunction with other spells that are on the GCD. From there, we're going to take the cooldown reduction of Renewing Blaze, which will be Fire Within, and that will go into our AoE and movement speed increased ability, which this is great for Mythic Plus fights that have AoE centric abilities that do AoE damage to your party. You will want to pre-Zephyr before the AoE ability comes out, and that will allow your party to take 20% reduced area of effect damage. This also increases everyone's movement speed by 30%. I've seen people use Zephyr for movement speed increases. However, I would not recommend doing that if you are running higher keys. You do not want to waste this on the movement speed unless you're trying to do some tech or you know nothing of AoE is going to come out anytime soon. You can definitely use this for movement speed increasing. So from here, some people do like to take Rescue, depending on the dungeon. If the dungeon has some abilities where you need to grab people and move them, just like Life Grip from Priest, you will use Rescue. I don't use it a lot because I trust the teams that I'm running with, so I will not use this, and instead I will go over here to Oppressing Roar. And basically Oppressing Roar will increase the CC upon any enemy used once this is on them by 50% for the next 10 seconds. So you can use this with your stun, your Deep Breath stun, which is called Terror of the Skies. You can use Oppressing Roar before you stun, and those enemies will be stunned for much longer than 3 seconds. So before Terror of the Skies, which I like running Terror of the Skies, you don't have to. You can use this for rescue and also go into Twin Guardian, which whenever you rescue someone, you will also put a absorb shield equal to 30% of your maximum health onto them. But like I said, I don't use rescue too much these days, possibly more in raid than Mythic Plus, but if the dungeon I'm running calls for some type of rescuing ability or the need for me to grab a DPS that's in harm's way, I will run rescue as much as I can. However, I do like running my big stun. It's great. I highly recommend it. From here, I want to use Oppressing Roar to get to Aerial Mastery, which will give me one more charge of Hover, which is my ability that allows me to cast while moving and also will jolt me forward in the direction that I'm facing to possibly dodge out of harm's way. Think of it as a monk's roll or a mage blink. Okay, and the last talent that I missed, I didn't go through, would be Scarlet Adaptation. If you've seen one of my last videos, Scarlet Adaptation and Enkindled will contribute to your tier set, which we'll go over that soon. You definitely want Scarlet Adaptation. It's a passive, but it basically stores 20% of your effective healing. So the healing that you do up to 27k, which will be increased per intellect and secondary stats. It will cause your next damaging living flame to consume all that stored healing to increase the damage dealt. So as we already went over, Living Flame is a feeler. Basically, when you have healing stacked up through Scarlet adaptation, your Living Flames damaging output will be increased substantially. So that's going to be the left side tree. These are the talents that I like to run. There are some more talents to mention. However, I'm not going to mention them too much in here unless you want me to make a whole nother video on every single talent. I'm going to give you the basis of what I choose and the basis of what I think someone new to the class should play in order to get used to the fundamentals of Preservation Evoker. So I hope you enjoy my left side discussion. And before we go over to the right side, let's go over some of these abilities that we discussed here. The Stun specifically and Oppressing Roar, as well as Renewing Blaze. We'll go over those. So Renewing Blaze, which I have mine here. Basically, whenever you take damage, you get healed back. So I'm going to go against this tanking dummy here and let him hit me. But before that, I'm going to hit Renewing Blaze. So we're going to melee him. As you see, he's hitting me. I'm going to hit Renewing Blaze. I'm getting hit for 22k, 20k. He's going to hit me 26k. He's still trucking me, but I'm getting healed because of Renewing Blaze. So I can also echo and reversion all of that back up to full. So as you saw, every time he hit me for, we'll say 40k, 45k, I was getting healed for 20k, 25k, right? And that's how Renewing Blaze works. Basically, Renewing Blaze and Obsidian Scales are not on the global CD. So whenever I use an ability that's on a global CD, you see how all these cooldowns will do the spiral effect. These two abilities do not. So next on the list is going to be Oppressing Roar into our stuns. And Oppressing Roar will affect any CC. It does not have to be our CC, right? So originally, since I'm running Terror of the Skies, or if anybody would stun, we'll say like Warrior Shockwave, etc., I'm going to stun these and they're going to get stunned for 3 seconds. As you saw, all of these mobs and these target dummies, they got stunned for 3 seconds. The next deep breath that I have before I stun these targets, I'm going to use Oppressing Roar. Okay, so let's go over how Oppressing Roar affects crowd control. And Oppressing Roar will activate in a cone in front of you. I can be pretty far away and hit all these targets with Oppressing Roar. Oppressing Roar also modifies the crowd control of every other player that is attacking the enemy or whoever has Oppressing Roar on them. So I'm going to hit Oppressing Roar. It will increase all the crowd control affected onto this current target. So I will stun, and as you can see, roughly 5 seconds, we'll say, instead of 3 seconds, these dummies were stunned for, which originally my stun activates for 3 seconds, but Oppressing Roar will increase that by 50%, and as you saw, it was 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds. So as long as there's no DR out, you can Oppressing Roar, and a Kidney Shot, a Hammer of Justice, or Shockwave will stun the mobs in play for much longer than they would originally. And it works with any crowd control ability. It doesn't have to be stuns. I'm just explaining that as per example. And the last ability before I move over to the right talent side tree is going to be called Zephyr. And as we stated before, it will reduce the damage taken from area of effect or AoE attacks by 20% and increases the movement speed by all party members up to possibly 4. Yes, okay, so it does say conjure an updraft to lift you and your 4 nearest allies within 20 yards into the air. So it will increase the movement speed by 30% as well for 8 seconds. So say you're fighting a boss and the boss is about to do a big AoE ability. I'll try to bring up an example here from one of my past runs. You will hit Zephyr, launch yourself into the air, and you'll get this buff that will increase your movement speed, but also reduce the damage that you will take from area of effects or AoE effects by 20%. It is a great ability for Mythic Plus, as technically it is 5 players that will have this effect because you are included in your 4 nearest allies. So 5 players, Mythic Plus, 5 players. You use this and everyone that's within 20 yards will have their damage taken from AoE effects reduced by 20%. A great ability. I would recommend taking this 9 times out of 10. Okay, so the healing side, which will be our preservation side, the right side of the talent tree, we shall review that now. And the first ability we go into is Echo. Basically, Echo states wrap an ally with temporal energy, healing them for 18,643. That'll be increased per intellect and item level, secondary stacks, etc. causing your next non-echo healing spell to cast an additional time on that ally at 105% of normal healing. So this is a very, very important ability. It's basically the bread and butter of preservation for the most part. You will use other abilities to modify the echo that goes out, which could be a weaker echo or the strongest echo. And your tier set as well will apply echo per empower ability you use, which will be your force up. We'll also go over that later. But as the best example that I can give, I will take this target dummy right here. And as you see, there's no abilities, no healing, nothing's going out. I will apply echo to this dummy here. And I will also apply a hot ability on myself, which is called reversion. So now I have a heal over time effect, and this dummy also has a heal over time effect. Now, something else you can do is double each hot or each healing ability. So Spirit Bloom, Dream Breath, Living Flame, or Reversion can all double its effect per echo that you have out. And depending on the echo that you send out, like if you're running a Resonating Sphere, it will apply echo at 30% effectiveness. We'll go over this talent in a minute, but that'll be a weaker echo than the original echo that you have here. So if I add echo onto a target and then hit reversion, it has 2 reversions instead of 1. If I add echo over here and put reversion on myself, once again, I have reversion. This target has reversion. If I apply echo to another target and I want that target to have 2 dream breaths at 1 tick, I will dream breath, and it has double the dream breath hot. So that first tick that will heal for the maximum amount of the heal over time effect, because I used 1 tick, it now has double because of echo. Echo also works in a very nice way to combine all your healing per echo hit. And depending on if you shoot out a Resonating Sphere or you apply echo manually to get the max echo percentage, you can also run abilities such as Verdant Embrace to give everyone lifeline. You're sharing healing with an ally. You can also couple that with your Emerald Communion. That is a combo to use with echo. It's great. And Verdant Embrace also, because of lifeline, will share healing up to 40% of the amount healed between anyone who has the Verdant Embrace effect, right? And because I shot out my Temporal Anomaly, everyone would have had echo here. As I have echo, I'll Verdant Embrace. As you see, I have the buff. This one has the buff as well. Now everyone is sharing the healing done because I have all these echoes out and I Verdant Embraced myself or an ally. And Verdant Embrace is basically you just jump to an ally and heal them, as you see. So I jumped to this guy and also healed everyone over here because they have the echo still available. So now everyone has the combined healing. Now there's a lot to explain on echo. As I said before, like certain abilities, when I echo this person, when I Spirit Bloom, you do not exactly see a visual Spirit Bloom hot or anything anymore because we're not in season 2, but that Spirit Bloom healed double the amount because I had echo on there. So the only visual cue you see is going to be the green healing text above the dummy that you healed them for twice the amount because you have an echo on them, right? So when you are trying to heal certain targets with echo applied to them, like I can apply echo and then shoot a Living Flame, I can heal them for double instead of a single Living Flame that goes out. So I hope that's not too confusing, but I wanted to preface and try to make the echo understanding a lot more easier for you. Basically, you're just replicating healing spells through echo. And there's multi combo areas of interest that you can utilize with your healing via echo. So keep that in mind. It'll take some practice and you'll understand more of what abilities work and how they can be combined with each other over time. You just got to play a little bit more. So I want to move forward. The next on the list is going to be Dream Breath. We already talked about this earlier. Dream Breath is basically going to be, depending on where you want to use Dream Breath, if you want to use 1 tick of the Empower, you're going to get a higher hot versus less of a instant heal. If you want to go all the way and max out the Dream Breath, you will get a massive instant heal and less heal over time effect. Next on the list is Reversion. Reversion is basically going to be your heal over time effect, and it states repairs an ally's injuries, healing them for 48k, 50k, or 49k roughly, which will be amplified by your intellect, item level, secondary stacks, etc. over 15.6 seconds. when reversion critically heals, its duration is extended by 1.7 seconds. And as you can see, that green text below the 30-yard range means that it is affected by how much haste you have. So the CD will be affected by how much haste you have. Do we use a lot of haste as Preservation Evoker? Not so much, but we might this season because of our tier set and how fast we would like our GCD to work. So next on the list is going to be our big boy heal. This is your oh shit button. And I think if you're pressing it more than you're pressing your other abilities, you're playing Preservation Evoker wrong. So I urge you to try not to press this ability unless you strictly have to. And it's been nerfed into the ground. It's still good though, but it basically says rewind 33% taken in the last 5 seconds by all allies within 40 yards. Always heals for at least 24,000, which is going to be increased. Healing increased by 100% when not in a raid. So it will heal for more in a Mythic Plus environment. Keep that in mind, and I will show you how this works right now. So basically you take damage. I'm going to take a little bit of damage here from this guy. When I get to like 60%, I'll use rewind, and I'll rewind. Now I'm back to full. So I'm 100% from 60. But once again, basically with however much damage you take within the last 5 seconds, it will be rewound to heal for 33% of that damage taken. All right, and next is going to be time dilation. This is going to be your big defense button. This will be like, it's like a monk's stagger. If you've ever played Brewmaster Monk, this will be a iron bark, but the damage is split over time, and it won't all happen instantly. It will happen over time. The only time you never want to use time dilation is for possible debuff stacking. If you have a lot of poisons in a certain dungeon that just stacks over time, and you throw a time dilation out, that time dilation is going to gather all that damage from the stacked poison, even if you dispel it, and it will send it right back to the person that time dilation is on. And it could cause many, many, many deaths for your tanks unintentionally. So keep an eye on when you throw out time dilation and when you shouldn't, because the damage that will be caused over time after you throw it out on someone could come back and kill them. So it's basically a big defensive button. You throw it on your tanks mostly. You can throw it on your allies too if you know your tanks are good, but you know someone's getting targeted by something, throw it on a non-tank ally, and you could possibly save their lives, or you could kill them. So it's basically, it says stretch time around an ally for the next 10.4 seconds, causing 50% of the damage they would take to instead be dealt over time. Just like I said, again, it's basically a damage reduction buff that will be distributed over time. So not all instantly, but over time. Okay, so next on the list is going to be temporal compression, and it says each cast of a bronze spell, which would be even your buff, when I press my buff, my blessing of the bronze, right? You'll get this as an evoker. It's a default. It's basically the cooldowns of your speed abilities. My hover, rogue sprint, etc. will be reduced by 15% for 60 minutes. Whenever I use this ability, I will get a stack of temporal compression. So each stack I get, up to 4, will lower the cast time of my empower spells. So whenever I hit fire breath or dream breath, if I have my temporal compression up here, see, I use echo is applied to temporal, and reversion, I'm at 4 stacks. So now that I use fire breath, it's going to cast faster. The empower charge up ability will cast faster as opposed to casting slower. As you can see visually here, it's slower now. So, and this will work for Dream Breath, this will work for Spirit Bloom and Fire Breath. The next ability is going to be Essence Burst, and this is a huge ability that you need to keep an eye on. It's basically every time your Living Flame has a 20% chance to make Essence ability free. Your Essence abilities are going to be Disintegrate and Echo, right? So your tier set will shoot out Living Flames. We'll go over tier set more in a little bit, but basically your empower spells shoot out Living Flames, and those Living Flames have the ability to proc Essence Burst, right? And you also want to go into the talent below it, which you want it to stack twice. You don't want to have one, so you stack twice. So every time you shoot a Living Flame out, you get a chance to add an Essence Burst. I did not get one. So whenever I shoot a Living Flame out, I have a chance to get Essence Burst. And it says your next Echo Emerald Blossom, or Disintegrate, it's free. Most of the time I use these on Disintegrate, but in Season 3, I'll probably be using a lot more Echoes. So it's basically, instead of using a Essence up here, which you will have this as an Evoker, you'll have the ability to have 5 Essences, or you can increase your Essences to 6 running Power Nexus. So I have 5 up here, and when I use an Echo, it uses 2 Essence. When I use Disintegrate, it uses 3 Essences. So when I Living Flame something, or myself, or an ally, that's a 20% chance to make my next Essence ability free, stacking up to 2 times because I'm taking this talent here. Okay, so moving on, I'll try to make this a little faster too. We obviously know what Spirit Bloom does. We talked about this earlier, and how you can apply Echo and you'll get 2 heals of Spirit Bloom out. Spirit Bloom does not increase its heal. The longer you let it go, it will increase the amount of allies healed. But if you want to single target a tank, which it's good for, you can go to your tank, Echo your tank, do 1 tier of Empowered Spirit Bloom, and you will heal double the amount of that Spirit Bloom on 1 ally, which will be a single target tank. Next on the list is going to be more your damage. And basically, I'm going to suggest this build as a starter build, because this will allow you to have a lot of fun on your Evoker until you start getting into bigger keys or harder content. At some point, you might need to change these damage abilities out for more healing abilities. So we're going to go down the middle tree here, and the first one's going to be Life Giver's Flame. And it basically says Fire Breath heals 5 nearby injured allies for 70% of the damage done up to 5 targets, split evenly among them. You run that into Life Force Mender, which this is great for your tier set, because your tier set's Living Flames will play off of Life Force Mender, and it has 2 talent nodes here, so we'll go into both of them. And basically, Living Flame and Fire Breath deal additional damage and healing equal to 2% of your maximum health. And in Season 3, we're going to get higher gear and higher item levels, so that means our HP is going to increase. So if we let Fire Breath stack all the way, we shall also heal people in our party for the damage dealt equal to 2% of our maximum health. And next on the list is Emerald Communion. Emerald Communion basically works as a mana regenerator, as well as a oh shit button, but comboed with an ability called Lifebind and Verdant Embrace. So with Lifebind, Verdant Embrace temporarily, almost said temporal. Verdant Embrace temporarily, I've been playing this class for too long, temporarily bonds your life with an ally, causing your healing on either partner to heal the other for 40% of the amount. So this does have an over healing effect to it, but basically how you want to set this up is you'll want to get echoes out on everyone. If you're running Temporal Anomaly, you'll want to echo everyone. It'll be a lower echo, but you have echoes out. You're going to Verdant Embrace yourself, which will be 4 targets. We have 4 targets here. And now we're going to Emerald Communion. This restores our mana, but also heals us for 20% health. And the overhealing is also transferred. So if we're capped on our healing from Emerald Communion, we will overheal, transferring to other injured allies. But that is also modified by our Lifebind, which will be 40% of the healing is going to be shared. So you're getting massive amounts of healing for an oh shit button, but also an ability that will regenerate mana as well. So between Rewind and Emerald Communion, keep those in your back pocket for when you need them the most. Do not spam these abilities. They are your oh shit buttons. All right, so moving back to how Lifebind works. Another reason you want to do this with Lifebind, it will also heal other people for 40% of the amount healed. But once you go down into this tree right here on the left side of the preservation tree, there is an ability called Call of Ysera. And basically it says Verdant Embrace increases the healing of your next Dream Breath by 40% or your next Living Flame by 100%. So a good rule of thumb is whenever you're wanting to Life Breath, always try to Verdant Embrace. So you have these 2 abilities and you consume Call of Ysera, which will also increase this Dream Breath heal from its base value, right, by 40%. The talent that I did go into, you have 2 options here. Most of the time I like Dreamwalker. You're basically able to move using Emerald Communion. The other one is you cannot move, but your maximum health is increased, which will play off of your mastery for 15 seconds. Rush of Vitality, I like using in raid more, but most raid fights are you moving, so half the time you're going to be using Dreamwalker, just so you can move, heal, and regenerate mana at the same time if you play everything correctly. So the next two talents here, Spiritual Clarity, Spirit Bloom's cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds, self-explanatory, and Spirit Bloom increases your essence regeneration rate by 100% for 8 seconds. I don't see a lot of people running Empath. The talent that I'm going to choose here, like I said, is a default build that I urge everyone to start playing just to get a feel for Preservation Evoker. So I'm not going to go into too many of these other talents until we go over Raid and Mythic Plus. What we're going to do now is go into this thing called Golden Hour, and this is what makes reversion so important. So to play Preservation smart, you want to run Golden Hour and Grace Period down here. So between Golden Hour and Grace Period, we'll get to Grace Period in a minute. We'll talk about Golden Hour. Basically, you want to be smart with your reversions, and it says reversion instantly heals the target for 15% of the damage taken in the last 5 seconds. You want people to take damage in order to be good at applying reversions, right? So I'm going to go up here and let this dude attack me. He's going to hit me. 85, 76. I'm going to echo into reversion. I'm going to heal all of this back up in overtime, obviously. So this reversion hot is going to be increased even more because I let myself take damage within the past 5 seconds. That only works if you're taking this talent. So keep that in mind. Golden Hour is a huge important ability for preservation and will dictate a good preservation from a bad one, paired with echo and how you combo your abilities. So the next ability too is going to be Time Lord, and this is what also makes echo really good, and this will also make your tier set good. This will make your application of echo really good in general, right? So while running Time Lord, each echo that you throw out will have 105% of the healing replicated. When you're not running Time Lord, you only have 55% of echo replication. So you see how big that is. You want your echoes to be great so you can throw hots out and continue to do damage instead of having to keep up with healing. That's the biggest thing, and that's why people struggle outside of trying to do the cone healing that you have to do and position yourself to heal people while playing Preservation Evoker. That is the main reasoning behind why people have such a difficult time playing this spec. After that, you are going to be playing Temporal Anomaly, and there's two options here. Once you get your 4 set, I kind of lean on trying out Nosdormu's teachings. Some Preservation Evokers that are good, maybe not rank 1, are probably going to tell you not to take it, but I've seen some high-end rank 1 healers run Nosdormu's teachings once they got the Season 3 4 set. Don't try this ability. You can't try it out just to figure out how it works, but don't rely on this ability until you get the new 4 set. It works better from your Empower abilities. You get a lower cooldown reduction on your Empower abilities, but we're going to be running Resonating Spear, which basically sends out a ball, and you will have to aim this ball right here. You'll have to aim it. It will send out a mini shield to people, as well as I have on here, 28k mini shield, as well as a GD version of Echo. So any chance that you get to combo things, this is a good spell. Resonating Sphere, this is a safe and good spell to combo certain abilities like Verdant Embrace, Dream Breath, or Spirit Bloom to heal more, but not as much as a regular 105% Echo would heal. So moving on, I run double reversion charges, which will be punctuality, into an energy loop, which will relate back to the blue spell that we took earlier. We took Landslide in order to get this spell, Natural Convergence. So this spell, Disintegrate channels 20% faster, works hand in hand with energy loop. So I recommend always taking both of these together to get the maximum throughput of Disintegrate. And Disintegrate was buffed a lot recently for Preservation and Evoker in general. It's a great spell and filler when you're not healing to do big damage. And it basically states Disintegrate deals 20% more damage and generates 70 200 mana over its duration. So basically, Disintegrate is just a channel. You are regenerating mana while you're in the channel. You can also hover and use Disintegrate while moving. It's sometimes a bit of an awkward ability to use. You'll get used to it over time, but that's how Disintegrate works. It runs off of essences, and whenever you have Essence Burst, I'll proc an Essence Burst here eventually, you get free Disintegrates, which I recommend using on Disintegrates when there's no healing to be done, or there's no future healing to be done. All right. And next on the list, Timeless Magic. Reversion, Time Dilation, and Echo lasts 15% longer. Self-explanatory. You definitely want Reversion to last longer as a hot. Time Dilation as well too, so you can have that longer 50% damage reduction stagger. And Echo as well, because you never know when you're going to have Echo sit there for a minute before you can actually do something, right? You might want to start damage while an Echo is running out. You might want to throw out some Living Flames while this Echo is still here. And then it's like, oh, okay, damage is coming in. You still have Echoes out. Let's get it before that Echo disappears. And before I go into this talent right here, this is the big talent, I will go into these other talents that I like running. Some people will run down here to get more healing and more essences, which will be Renewing Breath, self-explanatory, increases Dream Breath healing by a certain amount. So the 2 talent points will increase this to 30%, and you increase your essences to 6. This is a great safe build. I don't run that though, and I don't recommend running it. If you're trying to play Preservation starting off, I want you to play the fun build so you can get an understanding of how the class works. And also your Fire Breath will heal your allies in your party equal to 2% of your maximum health. So you can do damage and heal at the same time. It's a great build, great starter build. It's safe, but also just really fun to play. So what I do for this default build that I'm trying to urge people to start playing, if you're interested in Preservation Evoker, and this build also will be utilized in some keys, higher keys, but you know, for the keys that requires a metric ton of healing, you will probably want to go a safer healing route. All right, so the next talent before we go into Stasis is going to be Font of Magic. And like I said, the build that I'm trying to get people to run is a fun damage build, and this will increase your damage, healing, and most of your Empower effects will say. So your Empower spells maximum level is increased by 1. So with Fire Breath, for example, this increased level will also get me to do more damage. As you can see, I just shot up to like over 1 million burst damage there on these target dummies, which is insane for a healer, right? But like I said, you want the damage to make the spec feel fun to play with. So after that, we're going to go into the Grace Period, which I said is paired with Golden Hour and overall Reversion's ability to just crank, right? You'll want to have Reversion out on a lot of people before you heal them, because you're running this talent right here. In a sense, it kind of sucks because you are bottlenecked into putting Reversions out on people to get a bigger heal throughput. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world. So you'll run 2 talents into this, and it basically states your healing is increased by 10% on targets with your Reversion. So with these 2 paired here, you can utilize this for an AoE centric build running Resonating Spear, even though Resonating Spear is going to give you lower echo throughput. Everyone has echo now. You will Reversion because of the echo, and then from there, any heal that you do on the targets with the Reversion will be healed for 10% more than they would originally be healed for. It doesn't matter if you're using Spirit Bloom, Rewind, Emerald Communion, another Echo, Living Flame, Verdant Embrace, etc. The list goes on, right? So always remember, pre-reversioning people that who have not taken any damage through possibly Temporal Anomaly or just a free Echo is not a bad thing at all. They're going to take 10% increased healing because they already have a reversion on them. Lots of stuff you can do with Preservation Evoker. The sky's the limit. Literally, you fly into the sky, right? So the last talent that I want to talk about, which you will take probably in almost every bit of content, it's called Stasis. Stasis is a bronze type ability, but it is extremely powerful because it resets a lot of your cooldowns. And there's a lot of secret Evoker tech to play with Stasis. So basically, it says Stasis causes your next 3 helpful spells to be duplicated and stored in a time lock. you may reactivate stasis anytime within 30 seconds to quickly unleash their magic. So my talents are set. I'll let you guys see them again before I move forward. How stasis works basically is I'm going to activate stasis. If I have a max Spirit Bloom crank, I have a max Dream Breath crank, and then I have a Temporal Anomaly used, now my stasis is fully enveloped with 3 abilities. So I have Spirit Bloom, I have Dream Breath, and a Temporal Anomaly stored in my stasis up here. I can use it at any time. I can sit here and do damage. Oh, AoE came out, let's use stasis. It shoots everything that I just stored with the rank and everything into an instant type cast, we'll say. So it becomes very, very beneficial, but it can also hurt you as well. Because if you press stasis and you use an echo or you dispel, use naturalize or something, those will get stored in your stasis and you will lose a stack of stasis. So one last cool thing about stasis is you can store Cauterizing Flame into stasis, which will also reset its ability to dispel someone. Right, so Cauterizing Flame, if you remember, will remove bleeds, poisons, curses, and diseases. You can hit stasis, you can remove something off of someone, it will be stored in stasis. Once stasis gets stacked with the 3 abilities, we'll say Cauterizing will be on cooldown because you just used it to remove a bleed or something on someone. You hit stasis again, Cauterizing Flames cooldown comes back. So you get 2 Cauterizing Flames in possibly one window if that's how you want to do it, and if you're fast enough. There's multiple ways to build stasis into a fun build, into something cool that you feel proud of, or you can fuck yourself over like me and use Naturalize while stasis is up and waste a stack, because that happens a lot. Welcome to Evoker. All right, so let's get into specific talents for specific content. And I'll start off with Mythic Plus. It is week 2. I've got most of my 20s. I'm missing Throne. I should have done it last week, but it's too late. It's been a crazy week. In order to time these 20s, I've been running my healing centric build, not the damage build. I think the damage build is good up to maybe a plus 17 or 18 and could be okay once I get my 4 set, but I do not have my 4 set. All I have right now is currently a 3 set. So I need one more piece and I'll have my 4 set, and I will try out the damage build, but this is the first build I'm running for, we'll say, high-end Mythic Plus content. If you need to heal a lot, this is a great build to run. You're utilizing low cooldown on Spirit Bloom, and you're also utilizing increased healing with Dream Breath. That's most of the changes here as opposed to the damage build, and we've already went over these talents, so you have a little bit of utility, right? Certain incorporeal weeks, if you're not running Terror of the Skies, you can run Sleepwalk. You can change a few things out over here. I'll add this specific talent build into the description below, as well as the next one. Let's move on to the damage heavy build. And this is the second build that I ran, up to a plus 17, 18, some keys, maybe like a tall. I ran a plus 19 with this build. This build is very, very good as a starter build and a good enough build until you reach very, very high healing ceilings. So this is the universal build I would recommend anyone to run. This is why we went over it in the talent and how to play Evoker section. And you can utilize this in really good groups as well. And also this will probably be used a lot more once you get your 4 set and you're running with a specific team. But if you are running into healing issues, run the build that we first looked at. I will also add this into the description below if you're interested. Okay, so for the raid talents, I ran this build. I've cleared the entire raid, 9 out of 9. I ran this build because I don't have 4 set. 4 set will activate a lot more echo procking, we'll say, which also with the Living Flame procs will utilize a lot of the essence bursts, so you'll get free blossoms. So if that's the case, once we get our 4 set, the build that I will run will probably look something like this. We will run Field of Dreams and then possibly some fights too. If you're not going to utilize Dreamfly, I would always say take stasis for the most part, but if there's some fights where you can't move around and you can't soar across the floor, you would take out Dreamfly and go into Cycle of Life, which basically every blossom you drop leaves behind a tiny sprout, which gathers 10% of your healing over 8 seconds. It is then divided amongst everyone within 30 yards. So 4 set, sprout heavy build. If you don't have 4 set, go back to this build. You could also take out Exhilarating Burst and try maybe a cooldown reduction speed state You could try Flow State, something to look into, or maybe increase your Empower spells, we'll say, at some point, which I think you might have to take one of these points out down here. So that's my raid build. It felt really nice. I would like to force set to try out some more, but for now, that's the 2 builds that I suggest. There'll be 2 raid builds. It'll be this one and then the Blossom build. I'll leave both of those in the description below. I bet you didn't think I had a PvP build. I do. I'm not a big PvPer. I ran to 2K up to 2200 on a priest back in Shadowlands. I haven't played too much in Dragonflight, but I played enough. And this is my PvP build. I think this is Seadu's build. It is utilizing that DPS heavy build as well as a Dispel passive on use from your Fire Breath. So Fire Breath burns away 1 beneficial magic effect per empower level from all targets. So the longer you hold down Fire Breath, the more magic buffs you will dispel. The other one is Nullifying Shroud, which is great. It's basically a preventative measure against CC, crowd control. So if someone's coming in for a fear, you'll have to hard cast this, but you cast it. You have 3 stacks on you. They can't fear you until those stacks go away. And on the left side, this is utilizing a lot more utility for PvP and cooldown reduction. You have an Absorb Shield from Rescue, which is basically your pre-script. You have Sleepwalk, CC, and you also have a CDR or a bigger heal from your Renewing Blaze. All right, so let's go over some 10.2 stuff. We'll go over the tier set, and then I'll go over the Evoker, Preservation Evoker changes in 10.2. So starting off with the tier set, I have a 3-piece currently. This is the 2nd week of the season. I know my video's late, but I had some issues IRL. We're getting it now, and that's all that matters. So basically for the 2 set, Empower spells cast up to 3 Living Flames at enemies or allies struck at 50% effectiveness. The 4 set is going to be Living Flame has a chance to apply Echo at 70% effectiveness, which is the base Echo that we have. When we press Echo, it'll be that 105% on allies healed or a nearby ally who doesn't already have Echo. So how this works basically is if I'm going into a party here, if I'm in a dungeon and I'm trying to heal, any power ability, Fire Breath, Dream Breath, or as you saw, I had Living Flames go out, or Spirit Bloom will throw out Living Flames. As you saw, Living Flames just shot out of me. So we'll Fire Breath, and I have a bunch of Living Flames shoot out. I think Fire Breath is going to cater towards Living Flames hitting enemies, and any healing Empower abilities such as Dream Breath and Empower is going to cater to Living Flame hitting allies and healing them, and applying at 33% RNG, applying an Echo. The echoes that are applied through the 4 set will show up with the 105%, as you see here. That was a last minute change they made. Very good, very enjoyable. So the tier set we have, the 2 set, is probably one of the best 2 sets we've had. It got nerfed. It was 5, but now it's 3 Living Flames enemies once you shoot out an Empower spell. Still great. The 4 set is good. Is it the best? No, but it's good enough. They changed it to where it's very viable and it does what we need it to do. So that's the tier set. The changes that we have in 10.2 specifically to Preservation Evoker. First, Rewind was nerfed from 40% down to 33%. Rewind has been nerfed constantly, and they finally got it down to, I think, a very, very good number. These numbers, the nerfing is coming from a raid environment, not so much a Mythic Plus environment. Still a strong ability. You'll see it more in raid. You'll feel the nerf more in raid than you will Mythic Plus. The next one is Living Flame Inverted Embrace. Healing has been increased by 25% and 35% respectively. This is basically to compensate for any single target healing issues that Preservation Evoker has, and I appreciate it. It's a great buff. After that, Cycle of Life, which is going to be mainly a raid talent that we'll probably take, now accumulates less healing and lasts 8 seconds from 10 seconds. So apparently this was doing too much. As you know, with the 4 set, we get Echo procking, and with that Echo procking, when we have the Essence Burst procking from our 2 set, from the Living Flame outburst, when we spam a Living Flame, as you see, Living Flame goes out, we have a chance to accumulate an Essence Burst. So with an Essence Burst, we will have a free Emerald Blossom. If you're running the Emerald Blossom build, which will probably include Cycle of Life, that was just getting too out of control, so I think that's where that nerf came from. And last, Resonating Spear now applies Echo to 3 targets. It was 5. So this is a big nerf to Temporal Anomaly, and it is probably the reasoning why we don't use it in raid anymore, because there's a lot of bodies in raid, and 3 baby echoes going out does not justify the mana cost of TA in raid now. So TA will probably stay in Mythic Plus until you get your 4 set. Then you can mess around with No Stormer's teachings or continue to run this for a safe build. It's up to you. And that's all the 10.2 changes. Okay, so I know I've touched base on a lot of the abilities so far. However, let's just go through real quick on how you should set up and what playing as Preservation Evoker looks like. So basically, when you go in, you always want to try to shoot out a temporal anomaly to get everyone their little mini shield as well as an echo. And once that's tracking, you can do some damage here. If you're running a heavy DPS build such as this, you can always utilize the healing from Fire Breath, passive healing, as well as other modifiers. But I am running a stun, so if you're not running a stun, Deep Breath is still going to be a filler. And basically, your starter rotation when you're running into a pack, we'll say, try to get TA out pre-TA, right? So you can get an echo out on everybody. Go in, you can Fire Breath. I usually go 3 or 4. Once that happens, we'll go into a Deep Breath. I'm lagging because of this Mage Shear. Holy ball sack. And that is a metric ton of damage from Deep Breath and Fire Breath, respectively. Basically, you just want to fill in. As you saw, I had Essence Burst proccing there. I would have used Disintegrate. See, Essence Burst, I'll sit here and Disintegrate and continuously watch my party. Oh, you know, AoE's coming out. Okay, I know it's coming out. Let's TA before the AoE comes out. Pop a reversion on myself. Everyone who had the TA and the mini echo, they will have reversion on them as well. So that's going to increase my healing. So we'll say they're passively getting healed. I'm going to sit here and just do damage. I get Essence Burst proccing. It's something that we want to continuously have uptime on. Don't be afraid to press hover either, so you can move around. Send out another TA. Maybe some people still have reversion ticking. Let's throw out a mini Dream Breath here. Get an Omega Hod on them. They can have double Dream Breath. As you see, this DH has double Dream Breath because of my Echo. And basically the name of the game, when you're not wanting to, you know, go crazy single target killing, is you want to passively heal people while still doing damage. So always be watching your Essence Burst procs. As you see, I have 2 here. I want to Disintegrate because Disintegrate will also recover mana. And if we see that people are casting and our kick is down, we can zoom in and then kick everyone up and also knock them back with our Evoker utility. Living Flame, Disintegrate. Living Flame, Disintegrate. Fire Breath, when you have 3 or more targets. Single target is still good enough. If you're doing single target, you might want to just do 1 tick so you can get the dot out. The dot will last longer and also hurt for more. So Living Flame, Disintegrate. Living Flame, Disintegrate. Fire Breath. You have 3 or more enemies. Once you have 3 or more enemies, you'll want to Deep Breath, stun all of them. A good rule of thumb is to have that oppressing roar up first before you go into Deep Breath. But Living Flame, that's about it. Other than that, we've already discussed how you can maximize your healing output. And from there, you know, PA's going out, reversions, Verdant Embraces, Dream Breath in the cone. Keep in mind too, that the person you're targeting is going to get your single target Spirit Bloom if that's what you want to do, or if you want to heal everyone, you can go max output. So you see, I had everyone out, and then my 2 set procced and shot Living Flames out to everyone. And if you're getting targeted yourself, it's good to have weak auras or add-ons that'll tell you that you're getting targeted. You can pre-renewing Blaze, so when you get hit, you'll be healed for that amount of damage, and you can also pre-Obsidian Scales. Don't forget to lust on bosses and lust on certain pools when you have it. As you see, I have mine on my bar. Don't fat finger. You definitely don't want that buff to come out and everyone get mad at you when you randomly press it for no reason at all. Tip the scales. If you have a big pack, tip the scales into Fire Breath. Will give you that instant Fire Breath crit, and you'll do a lot of damage and feel good about yourself. Don't forget to Stasis. Pop that if you'd like to have your Cauterizing Flame CD come back. You can throw in 3 Cauterizing Flames. Let's say everyone's got bleeds. You just use 3 Cauterizing Flames into Stasis, pump out, everyone's got their bleed removed, and Cauterizing Flame is back off CD. Another filler too, if you're trying to slow enemies, I like to Azure Strike. Azure Strike's basically free. It's just, it will hit a specific amount of enemies and can hit more if you go into Protracted Talents, which I don't recommend that ever unless you're doing a specific content, but it will slow. As you see, it gives in Permeating Chill because you are running this passive right here. So a good spam will give you some AoE abilities. If you're running out of abilities to press and you don't have any hovers yet left and you're moving, just spam some Azure Strikes. Throw some Azure Strikes in there just to slow some enemies down if you need to. Preferably not during staying weeks. And don't forget, you also have a root time dilation. It's like a mini iron bark. Throw time dilation out on tanks mostly. 50% of the damage is being delayed, and that's your Evoker. All right, so let's go over secondary stats. I am running a Mythic Plus build. This is the gear I've obtained so far during the season. I would like to have different types of stat weights right now, but I will give you a rough estimate. If my character is not reaching these or it is exceeding the threshold, don't think too much about it. I still have a lot of gearing to do. I'm just picking up gear as I go to increase my item level, which will bring me to the first, we'll say, thing that you want to go after. It's going to be item level. Item level increases your intellect. So at the end of the day, if something is well above a 430 or 447 piece, pick the 470 plus piece, right? It'll increase your item level, give you a metric ton of intellect and stamina, which is great for what you need. After that, we're going to go into the two most important secondary stats, and that'll be crit and haste. I feel like crit is still as important this season. Haste will be next, or vice versa, depending on your playstyle. Keep in mind too, haste only applies to specific abilities such as Temporal Anomaly. It has that green timer text, 12-second cooldown. That means haste affects this cooldown regeneration. Haste also affects Verdant Embrace, and haste also affects reversion. Other than that, haste is not that powerful for Evoker, but this season, because of your 2 set, I feel like it's much better to have faster global cooldowns and faster cast times of, we'll say, like Living Flame, etc. So for the first crit threshold, I recommend trying to hit 30%. 30% seems like a very good number to reach, and it's right at the diminishing return mark. Haste, on the other hand, I would recommend going anywhere between 20% up to 25%. I know I'm 27%. I'm going to fix that eventually. That's my recommendation. Haste is not as strong to Evoker, Preservation Evokers, as it is to other healers. Next on the list for Mythic Plus specifically is going to be Versatility. Versatility, as you see, I have 5%. I'm lacking in my survivability department, which also will contribute to my mastery, because the higher HP I have, the higher healing I do. So I need to get that back up eventually when I start crafting more gear. I would like to reach a 15% mark. You can go well above that. The higher keys you go, you'll probably want to stack more versatility. If you're doing plus 25s, almost, up to plus 27s right now in this current season, I would recommend definitely going up to 20%, possibly higher. And then lastly, for Mythic Plus, Mastery is going to increase your healing when compared to your HP versus your party's HP. So the higher HP you are, which will contribute to how much survivability you have, the more health and more healing you can put out. And for Mastery Mythic Plus, I'd hit a very good 40% mark. If you go higher, it's perfectly fine. It's up to you. It's your playstyle. These numbers are feel-good numbers. This is from playing for a while and trying to see what works, as well as a little bit of math. We're right at those DR numbers, diminishing return numbers, to where those stats are going to start to cut themselves and not give you the full percentage. My recommendation for raid would be item level first. Same thing as Mythic Plus. Mastery first, crit, versatility, and haste last. I would honestly put crit, versatility, and haste all in one category. Crit being higher than versatility and haste, but it depends on your playstyle. However, just put mastery at the top. And with those numbers, you can reach a lot more mastery than you can everything else, right? So I think in raid, you're wanting to hit at least 50% or higher of mastery for sure. The higher mastery you have in raid, in a raid environment, the more healing you're going to do. And for PvP, I'm going to go item level first, haste and versatility next, mastery after that, and crit last. Okay, so let's go over the item enchants as well as consumables. I'll be really quick about this. We'll start off with your helm. From a quest currently called the Power of Dreams, you'll get an item or an enchant. It's going to be called Incandescent Essence, and it caters to your specific role, healer, DPS, or tank. You'll put it on your helm. It is multi-use, so you can use it on different helms. It's not a one-use thing. Next will be your sockets on your neck. You'll be able to have 3 of them. I recommend doing 2 secondary stat based gems and then 1 main stat plus secondary stat gem. After that becomes your cloak. This is in Mythic Plus. You'll want to run Graceful Avoidance for Mythic Plus and Leech for Raid. And chests, the enchant's called Waking Stats. I recommend this for Raid and Mythic Plus. If you are having mana issues, you can also go with Reserve of Intellect. Bracers, Avoidance for Mythic Plus, Leech for Raid. Your belt is going to be called the Shadow Belt Clasp. It increases your stamina, I believe, by 102. It's great for Mythic Plus and Raid, and I think it's the only belt enchant you can use right now. As for your legs, I recommend using Temporal Spell Thread or the other Spell Thread, which will increase your stamina depending on what issues you're having. If you want more HP, go with the 177 intellect plus 131 stamina. If you're having mana issues, go for the 177 intellect and 5% increased mana. Next is going to be boots. This will be Watcher's Loam. For most of these enchants, I do recommend the last piece of gear, the best gear that you have, to get the rank 3 version, which will be the 3 gold marks as you see. Watcher's Loam will increase your stamina by 92. It's great for more health. And then the other 2 enchants here are going to be for your rings. As you see, I'm running versatility because my versatility is low and I need versatility. So for ring enchants, I would recommend whatever stat you need, go for it. And lastly, your weapon enchant. It's always going to be Sophic Devotion. It'll probably be pretty expensive, but it will increase your primary stat by a set amount. I think it's 900 and something with the rank 3. So great enchant to have. It's just a proc based enchant. As for consumables, your 2 main files that you'll use here in Mythic Plus and Raid are going to be File of Tepid Versatility. I'm using that now because my base crit is going to be 30%. Or you can go with the Ice File of Corrupting Rage, which will increase your crit to a crazy amount. But since my versatility is so low, I'm using Versatility File at this time. The rune you'll want, which will be we'll say a mini empowerment on your weapon, is going to be mostly, I would choose Buzzing Rune. It'll increase your crit by 310, but if you have too much crit and not enough haste, you can always go Howling Rune. This is for Mythic Plus. As for Raid, I would always choose Hissing Rune, increases your mastery by 310. Now for your potions, we have a new health potion. It's called Dreamwalker's Healing Potion, restores 155k and another additional 155k over 6 seconds. The mana is going to be aerated mana potion. The food that you'll drink or eat will be the Deviously Deviled Eggs. This will increase your intellect by 75, or you can get the feast, the Grand Banquet of the Kaluk, I believe, Kalauka? I don't know. But you can get that and set it out for your entire party to feast on, and they'll get the primary stat buff. Also keep in mind, if you have your Renown set for Dream Wardens up to 18, I believe, you can get the new Dreambound Augment Rune. I do recommend this. This is a infinite use rune. You hit it once, it goes on cooldown for a minute. It costs 100,000 gold though, unfortunately, once you hit Renown 18. And that's going to be most of what you will be using. I will preference that Elemental Potion of Power is a thing. It will increase your primary stat by a set amount. I think it's like 664. I use that mostly in Raid, not so much in Mythic Plus. Maybe I should be using it more, but that might be for another video one day. All right, folks, that is the end of our Ultimate Preservation of Evoker guide, specifically for 10.2, but universally as well. I don't know why I wanted to make a just universal overall how to play Evoker guide, but it just happened and I went with it. And I do apologize for this being so late. I know it's the second week in the season. I've been running keys off stream, just trying to get what I can. As you see, I have a lot more to go this week. I'll probably hopefully hit 3K at the end of this week. We'll see though. And I just want to apologize as well. I've had some really bad things going on IRL that I've just been dealing with, trying to get past that. And it's also Thanksgiving. Holidays are rough for everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope this video comes to you well and you're very thankful for your life. And I'm also thankful that you're here with me too. So I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell people about this channel. Tell people about the video. I love you guys. Have a happy Thanksgiving and take it easy. Lemon squeezy.